Daf Nun Het, Noach, line 38. Rabbi Shimon says in our Mishnah, Kodashim She'aya B'Harutan, Hektish item that you're responsible for, Yesh Le'anonah, you can have, there is any sort of price fraud. But if there's no responsibility because it belongs to Bet HaMikdash completely, and there's no fraud. Tana committed Rabbi Yitzchak bar Abba, Tana taught in front of Rabbi Yitzchak bar Abba, Kodashim She'aya B'Harutan Hayav. If a shomer swore falsely about a hekdesh item that he's responsible for, he has to pay, that the guy was responsible for, he has to bring a theft asham. Right? Someone swears falsely about the theft, he has to bring a korban asham for the theft. Shani behen b'Hashem v'kihesh. Because I read the pasuk on it as it's against Hashem and he denied it. But if he's not responsible for the item that he's watching, patur. And I say that the item he's watching, the guy who gave it to him is not responsible for the item that this shomer is watching. Then he's patur from swearing shani because it's against his friend, and he not Hashem. Okay. Amarle Rabbi Yitzchak bar Abba said, what are you talking about? Ikchel mistavra. What the Braita should have said is the opposite. Because why? First of all, if the hektish item has more responsibility for it, then you should be responsible to swear even when it belongs to the guy. Secondly, according to the way we're saying it, you have to swear about God's property, but not regular property. But really, it's the opposite. You have to swear about regular property, but not Hashem's property. Amarle Isme. He's like, okay, should I delete it? Yani, should I erase this from our records? Amarle, no. We have to re-explain the Braita. Don't delete it. When the Shemer swears falsely about an item that's Hekdesh, it's included in the phrase of against Hashem and he swore falsely. If it's not responsible, it's excluded by it. So if he swore against an item in Tekdesh, that the item that the guy was not responsible for, it's only against Hashem, and therefore you're patur from the korban. Vice versa, you're chayav. Rabbi Damar just says, our Mishnah said that if you're selling a Torah, Sefer Torah, jewelry or jewel or an animal, and there's no price fraud. Tana Bretta says, Rabbi Damar, selling a Torah, Sefer Torah, there's no price fraud, because there's no real value to Sefer Torah. It's priceless, as they say. An animal or a jewel also there's no fraud. But the person wants to have matching items or specific items. So yes, even though a regular cow is worth $1,000, but it's perfect for what he needs, it's worth more to him. Anything in the world. The guy wants a matching tissue box also. He wants. Therefore, there's no price for a tissue box. So how does that make sense? That concept. Where it says, how does he explain that? No, animals and jewels, people want specific ones, and therefore they'll overpay for it, but not other items. Even in the situation where you're allowed to overpay or overcharge. How much is that limited to? Until double the value. Tanya Berta says, someone selling a horse, sword, or shield during the war, there's no fraud, because they're essential to war and life, and therefore, because it's essential during this time, there's no fraud during that time. I guess like the masks and Purell and toilet paper during Corona as well. The value went up. New Mishnah, just like there's you're not allowed to wrong people while buying and selling, so you can't wrong people with words. For example, you can't tell someone how much is the item, and you knowing you're not going to really buy it. If someone is about to don't tell him, remember what you used to do? If he's the son of a ger, don't tell him, remember what your father used to do? The pasuk says, don't bother the gerin. Don't bother your friend. It's referring to verbal. He's referring to monetary, not words. The Gemara says, no. You're buying or selling to your friend. That's referring to monetary. Therefore, the second pasuk teaches me is referring to verbal. How do you do verbal? If the guy's about to don't tell him what you used to do. Remember what you used to do. If you use a ger, son of a ger, don't tell you. Remember your father was Abdul Zra. Me'ager u'balo no Torah. If he's a ger and he comes to learn Torah, don't tell him Besha Achal Nevilot Utrefot Shekazim Rasim. Your mouth that ate Nevilot Utrefot and bugs. Balo Mo Torah Shneimar M'Piat Gra. You're going to come learn Torah that was fed by Hashem. Me'au Yusrim Ba'im Lev. Someone has unfortunately has challenges, sicknesses. If he's trying to, if he has to bury his children, don't tell him what Eob's friends told him when his sons died. Basically telling him, if you were clean, this wouldn't happen to you. Don't tell him this is happening to you because you're being punished. If donkey drivers are trying to buy grain from someone so they could get a job to transport it. Don't tell him, okay, go to this guy who needs it. He knows there's no guy there. Rabbi Damarita says, don't look at merchandise when you know you don't have money. Right. So I'd also seemingly include these quote unquote practical pranks on people would be included in these situations because it's bothering people. Live. These type of matters are regarding intent, which is hidden from other people. Anything that's with intent. You shall fear God, which means if a person says something mean to someone else, he can't say afterward. I mean, he could say, "Oh, I meant it well. I meant it in a positive way, constructive criticism." Hashem knows the truth. If you're trying to hurt him, you were trying to hurt him. If you're not, not. Next, verbal wrongdoing is more than monetary wrongdoing. Why? By verbal, it says you shall fear God. Monetary doesn't say that. It doesn't remember that says you have to go forward. The reason why it's worse is because verbal hurts the person himself. That's only his money. Monetary can be fixed by refunding. But verbal can never be fixed because it's hurt and pain. Whoever makes his friends white from embarrassment in public, as if he killed him. Rav Nachman told him, is that true? What you're saying is true, sorry. Because the person's red face turns white when he gets embarrassed deeply. What do they care about in the West? He says, they're careful not embarrassing people. Because Rabbi Chanina says, everybody goes to Gehinam except for three. So I mean, everybody goes to Gehinam. Rather, everybody goes to Gehinam except for and come out except for three who stay. Who these people stay? Someone who lives with another man's wife. Whoever embarrasses someone's face and turns it white in public. Whoever calls his friend an embarrassing nickname. Nicknaming is embarrassing. Same thing. No, even if he's used to being called his nickname, doesn't turn white anymore. That's still an insult, and you should not be calling it. It's still considered a very bad avira. No, it's better for a person to be with a woman who's a safek, possible eshet ish. Don't embarrass your friend in public. How do we know? The Darash learned. What does pasuk mean? The Bible said that when I limped, my enemies rejoiced and gathered, and if they tore me, I would not be silenced. His Hashem, you know that if they were ripping open my skin, my blood would not flow to the ground because I'm so embarrassed. Lord, additionally, not only do they always embarrass me in general, but they even in learning, even when we're learning halachot, they would tell me, they'd ask me like, David haba, if someone lives with another man's wife, what's the execution he gets? So backstory with Bathsheba, he lived with Bathsheba, who was a Safek Eshet Ish, really not Eshet Ish at all. People looked at it as Eshet Ish, so therefore it looked like it was Safek Eshet Ish. Levi Melech was punished regardless, but they would make fun of him that he lived with Eshet Ish by asking him, "Oh, what happens to a guy who lives with Eshet Ish with another man's wife, even though he was innocent?" Levi Melech would tell them, he gets henek, strangulation. But he still has whoever embarrasses his friend in public, like you're embarrassing me, will not have maba. Ouch. אמר רבי יוסף אמר רבי אמר לה אמר רבי חנא בר זנה אמר רבי שמעון בחסדה אמר לה רבי חנא משום רבי שמעון בר יוחאי noach lo adam she'apil at a person should rather throw himself in a fiery furnace don't embarrass your friend in public. How do we know? We learn from Tamar Nativ who motzet v'hi shaldecha el hamiha. She was, as she was being taken out to get killed for seemingly having adultery. Meanwhile, with Yehuda, her father-in-law, she sent the message to her father-in-law to look at these items, and he was the one who decided to save her. But she could have embarrassed him publicly, but she'd rather get killed, and therefore we learn that not to embarrass her friend. Don't embarrass, don't wrong your friend. Whoever is with you in Torah mitzvot, yani Yehud, don't bother them. Marav, scary stuff right now. Be careful of wronging your wife verbally. Because her tears come easily. Women cry easily. This applies to all women, not just your wife. The wronging for her also is close. Hashem listens to people who cry. Therefore, women in general, especially your wife, cry easily. Be careful not to make them cry. When the was destroyed, the gates of Tefillah were locked. Even though the gates of Tefillah were locked, the gates of tears were still not were left unlocked. Okay, Umar listens to his wife's advice. We'll explain. He'll go to Ginam. Don't be like Achav and listen to his wife. What do you mean? People say, if your wife is short, listen, go bend down and listen to her, whisper to her. Meaning, you should always listen to what your wife has to say. So, do you listen or not listen? When you say don't listen, is when general items. Household items, always listen to your wife. Something else. Religious matters you should follow, but general things you should listen to your wife. The heavenly gates of Tefillah locked except for the gates of if someone gets wronged. If he cries out because he got embarrassed or wronged, Hashem will listen to him quickly. That's why when you hear someone got embarrassed, you should always ask them for beracha. Hashem is standing on a wall with a strong stick, meaning Hashem will quickly punish people who do something wrong. Everybody gets attacked, punished through a shliach of Hashem, except someone hurts someone else, wronged someone else. That's Hashem does himself. He's holding the stick. So it says he's holding the stick. Hashem is holding the stick, which means he punishes, not the shliach. There are three offenses which the curtain of Hashem, the curtain in front of the Kisah HaKavod, separates Hashem from the Malachim. The curtain doesn't close. Yani Hashem doesn't let it pass. He will immediately punish someone for these three sins. Ona'ah, wronging someone else. V'gezel, robbery, and worshiping. We know we just mentioned wronging someone else. We just said Hashem standing stick. Gezel, stealing. Hashem is always listening to my face. People who steal. And Avodah Zarah, we see people are always, Pasuk says, people are provoking me continually to my face, which means Hashem is dealing with directly. Another very famous concept. A person should always be careful to have food in his house. A lot of fights are commonly found in people's houses because of grain, which means food, but it also can mean money. Right? Person, very, very famous concept. Couples fight because of money issues. That people say, when the barley and the cleaner is finished, the sounds of fighting starts the sound in the house. Right? People, there's money issues in the house. That's when the fights start. Person should be careful to have food in his house. Because in Israel were called poor only because they couldn't have bread. Pasuk said that if they try to plant stuff, the Midianim siege them and destroy the land. Bnei Israel were considered poor and impoverished because they didn't have bread. Another thing about your wife. Lem Adam Zahir Bechvuri Shal person should always be careful about his wife's honor. She'en beracha mitziyah betoch bedo Ish Adam ela b'tchili yisrael. A person berachah only found in a person's house only because of his wife. Shana Emar, the pasuk says, Ul Avram hetiv ba'avura. Paro treated Avram good because of Sarah. People honor your wife so that you become rich. A person becomes wealthy and successful because of his wife.